processing. So yesterday we began just briefly rehashing the story of the woman caught in adultery. And now we're moving on to the rest of chapter 8 of John, where he has this interaction in the temple treasury about who he is and who they are. And the Pharisees, the Jews, the leaders show their ignorance in this entire conversation. So they show their ignorance of his truthfulness. They show their ignorance of who his father is. And then we walk through the temple and where Jesus was. And so the next thing is from verse 22, the ignorance of his destiny. Let me get on the right page. So when it says his destiny, obviously it's talking about Jesus. And it says, I'm going to read verses 21 and 22. So he said to them again, Jesus said to them again, I am going away, and you will seek me, and you will die in your sin. Where I'm going, you cannot come. So the Jews said, will he kill himself, since he says, where I'm going, you cannot come? So here's what it is true. They didn't understand what he was saying. They were ignorant of what he was saying. But I'm not sure they could have any context to understand what he was saying. I don't think his own disciples knew what he was saying. Obviously, he was talking about his death and his resurrection and his ascension. But that's looking back on it. For them, they didn't know that was going to happen. So they assumed that he would commit suicide, because in Jewish writings of that time, committing suicide was an unforgivable sin. And so that the only place they wouldn't be able to go would be hell. And so that's kind of what they were thinking. But of course, that's not what he was talking about. That was very far from the truth. And your curriculum, and you're going to see this again, this is why I'm telling it to you, that when someone refuses the truth, refuses to believe the truth, then all truth becomes nonsense to that person. If we are rebelling against what is true, we can't see anything that is true. All truth becomes nonsense. And then there was ignorance about his identity, about who he was. Here's what he says in verses 24 and 25. I told you that you would die in your sins, for unless you believe that I am he, I am Messiah, you will die in your sins. So they said to him, who are you? Jesus said to them, just what I have been telling you from the beginning. So he doesn't really answer that, other than to say, I've already answered that. So they ask, who are you? And Jesus doesn't really bother to answer them, except to tell them that nothing has changed. I've told you this before. And so he continues then to say in verse 26 that he had many things to speak concerning judgment for them. And then he said, but he who sent me is true. Here's what verses 26 and 27 say. I have much to say about you and much to judge, but he who sent me is true, meaning God. And I declare to the world what I have heard from him. It's basically he's saying, I'm telling you the truth. What I'm telling you is straight from God. They did not understand that he had been speaking to them about the Father, about God. So again, they were ignorant of his identity. They didn't understand. We've seen misunderstanding over and over and over again, not just with the Jews, but with the disciples as well. And then this one is really odd. They're ignorant of their own history. This one is hard to believe, but let's walk through this conversation. So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed him, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. They answered him, "We are offspring of Abraham and have never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free?" Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The son remains forever. So if the son sets you free, you will be free indeed." So, I read that for you. So they're ignorant of their own history. They say, "We've never been slaves." Is that right? No. When have they been slaves? Yeah. They were slaves in Egypt. When else were they slaves? Well, they're slaves to sin, but literal slaves. Cheyenne, were you going to say something? I don't know if you remember this. It's been a long time ago. We talked about it, but the northern kingdom of Israel was overthrown by the Assyrians, and they were taken off to be slaves in Assyria, many of them. And the southern kingdom, Judah, was defeated by the Babylonians, and many of them were carried off into exile to be slaves. But what's going on politically in Israel right then? Yeah. But who's in charge? No. The Jews are not in charge of their own country. Who's in charge? The Romans. They are essentially enslaved to the Romans at this very moment. And yet they're saying, "We've never been slaves." That is a ridiculous thing to say. This happens spiritually too, when we refuse Christ and we become caught up in sin and caught up in ourselves and caught up in ungodly things. And we think we're free. We want freedom. I want to have the freedom to do what I want to do. And we end up enslaved, not even knowing. So now we'll move on to verses 39 through 47, and then we'll walk back through this when I'm done. They answered him, "Abraham is our father." Jesus said to them, "If you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. You are doing the works of your father." They said to him, "We are not born of sexual immorality. We're not illegitimate children. We have one Father, even God." Jesus said to them, "If God were your father, you would love me, for I came from God, and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot bear to hear my word. You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. But because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Which of you convicts me of sin? I tell you the truth. Why do you not believe me? Whoever is of God hears the words of God. The reason why you do not hear them is that you are not of God." This would have been horrendously offensive to the Jews. Not only is he saying, "God is not your father," to which they're saying, "We are God's people. Of course God's our father." But he says, "I know who your father is. Satan is your father." That's pretty wild, right? And offensive, right? Especially to a Jew. Think if someone said that to you. And they are upset about this. So here's how this is kind of a "who's your daddy" conversation. So the people are saying that the Pharisees are saying, "Abraham's our daddy." And Jesus says, "No, if he were your daddy, you wouldn't be trying to kill me. You're acting like your true father." And then the people say, "God is our true father." And Jesus says, "He can't be, because if he were, you would love me, because I came from him. Your daddy is the devil. He's a liar, just like you are. And you don't know God at all. and that's why you don't believe me. So you can see how that would be offensive to them. It's true, and the truth often is offensive to people who are living in rebellion. But they are offended nonetheless. So remember that they were arrogant, or not arrogant, ignorant of their own history, and we're saying they weren't slaves when they were. And then they're also ignorant of Christ's character. The Jews answered him, "Are we not right in saying that you are a Samaritan and have a demon?" Look, to call someone a Samaritan, that would be the ultimate put down. I don't want you to say anything when I say this. I don't need to know. But there is in your culture, in your age group, something that would be the ultimate put down. There was when I was your age. In Jesus' day, for the Jews, this would be the ultimate put down, to say you're a Samaritan and you're demon possessed. What could be worse than that? They had no clue who they were talking to. And they accuse Christ of demon possession, and they will again. Which means they're ignorant of his greatness, because they don't know who he is. And so they're ignorant of his greatness. Here's verses 49 through 53. Jesus answered, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. Yet I do not seek my own glory. There is one who seeks it, and he is the judge. Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. The Jews said to him, now we know you have a demon. Abraham died, as did the prophets, yet you say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died? And they're obviously like, no, you couldn't be. And the prophets died? Who do you make yourself out to be? Now, they're not saying, who are you? They're saying, you are so full of yourself, you're deluded. And so Jesus had said that the one who obeyed his words would never see death. Now, does he mean physical death? No, he means eternal death, spiritual death. And that statement just put them over the top. Because even Abraham died. Are you saying Abraham didn't know God? Because Abraham died. And then they say, and do you think you're greater than Abraham? There's no way you could be greater than Abraham. But they didn't realize that Jesus existed long before Abraham was ever around. And so Jesus goes on to say very clearly that he is God, ignorant of his eternality. And here's what we read in verses 54 through 57. Jesus answered, if I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. It is my Father who glorifies me, of whom you say he is our God. But you have not known him. I know him. If I were to say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you. Yet I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. So the Jews said to him, you are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham? And so I think they probably figured out, or at this point they thought, we've got this guy, because now he's talking really crazy that he knew Abraham hundreds of years ago when he's only 50. And so they mockingly say, you know Abraham? And now we see the outcome of their ignorance. Jesus said this. Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. Why did they want to stone him? Yeah.
Well, they think he was like,
okay, but it's more than that, Cheyenne. Yeah, it was blasphemy. If it's not true, it's blasphemy. He's clearly claiming to be God. Absolutely, clearly claiming to be God. Now listen, if you wrote this sentence in English, Mrs. Benson would have a little bit of a problem with that. He says, before Abraham was, I am. Cardinal rule in writing. You keep the same tense. But he does not. He starts out with the past tense. Before Abraham was, I am. Well, grammatically, it should be before Abraham was, I was. He'd still be saying he was born before Abraham. And he means that. But he means more than that, which is why he says, I am. Before Abraham was, I am. We've seen these two words before, have we not? In John's Gospel. I am, in the Greek, is ego eimi, and in the Hebrew, it is Yah. Jesus, it is true that before Abraham was born, Jesus was alive, but that's not what he's saying. Or that's not all that he's saying. He's saying before Abraham was, I am God. I have always existed. I am eternal. Which is why the leaders got so upset at him. Grammatically, this sentence is all wrong, but theologically, it's spot on. And so he is making a clear statement that he's God. Here's where it gets kind of bend your mind. Here's what he's saying. Abraham lived thousands of years, about 2,000 years before Jesus. Maybe not 2,000 years, I don't know. But he's saying 2,000 years ago, I am right now. 2,000 years from now, I am right now. If Jesus is God, he exists outside of space and time, so he is not bound by space and time. So all time, just like he is everywhere all the time, and he knows everything all the time, he is every time all the time. He knows right now, and he is right now. But he is also thousands of years ago and years from now, right now. He's not only every place, he's every time, all the time. Which is really hard for us to wrap our minds around. But if he's eternal, that has to be true. It's not that he just exists. We exist in this moment. We don't exist in the future, and we don't exist in the past. We exist only in this moment. If Jesus only exists in this moment, he's not eternal. He exists all time, all the time. He exists in all time, all the time. So he can both be 2,000 years ago and 2,000 years from now and right now, all at the same time. And this was a claim to deity, 100%, hands down, no bones about it, a claim to deity. And they knew it, which is why they tried to stone him. But they couldn't, because his hour had not yet come. It will come. And when it comes, he'll go willingly. But it hadn't come yet. This passage, these two verses, are two of the most important verses in the entire Bible. Because if they are true, and I believe they are, Jesus is God. And you can't just look at that and go, okay. That is an astounding thing. And it has an impact on our lives, or at least it should. So we're going to, I'm going to give you this quiz. I'm going to give you 3 answers that you need, because you probably won't get them on your own. And this can be your homework over the weekend. You may use your books, of course. Why don't you just pass it? Nope, we're not done yet, so stay with me, please. Oh, wow. Number 6. The Pharisees accused Jesus of being illegitimate, meaning that his parents weren't married. I don't know that if they would have known that. Number 7, when Christ said, "I go my way," which is a different version of the Bible that we use, in 8:22, he literally meant, "See, I withdraw myself." That's something I didn't choose to teach about. And then that thing I said you'd see again, when man refuses to accept the truth, all truth becomes a nonsense. Now the rest you can do on your own, and this will be due on Tuesday of next week. You've got a nice long weekend to get this done.